So for my style that I'm doing my animation, I picked Art Nouveau because it fits with the caterpillar in the garden. And I typed in Art Nouveau seamless pattern. So it will give me some really cool textures that I could use for my caterpillar. And there are a lot of great ones that come up here. Not sure which one I want. I downloaded one earlier I'm going to use, I think. Try it and see how it works. That would work. Oh, I think I used that one. See if that works. No, it's not free. Now, one thing I want to caution you guys against, whenever you're doing stuff for educational purposes, meaning your classwork, or for me demonstrating this, we can download stuff off the internet for free. And it's considered open resource. But if you're going to start, when you start working on projects that that are going to get out there to the public, that you're getting paid for, you're going to want to make sure you're using stock photography. And pay for them so that you have the license to use those. And there are websites, whoops. No, these are free, so you can use these. But if they're not, like, usually Adobe has a good one, you have to pay for these. And you want to pay for them because the person who did the Obama Hope Change poster, was sued. Yeah. So he was sued for that poster. And he took this photographer's image and turned it into that poster. And the photographer sued him and won. So you want to make sure you're not creating artwork that could get you sued. So pay your, and it's the right thing to do anyway. I mean, you don't want people stealing your work and passing it off as, in their work. So just be aware for your schoolwork that you're doing, you can borrow things off the internet, no problem. But once you start getting paid to do your work, you're going to need to make sure you're paying for it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to move this over here. I want my caterpillar to have a nice little texture to him. So I'm going to come up here. So it says Material Editor, and I want to make sure that this is the Material Editor that's coming up. If it's not, you can go to Modes and switch from this one to the Compact Material Editor. That is the one you want to start with. The other one is a lot harder to use because it uses wire diagrams. So we're going to start with this one. Okay, so Compact Material Editor. Whoops, accidentally closed it. And sometimes it comes up with some materials already put in there. You can delete those by hitting on the trash can. And it will get it back to blank slate so you can apply your own material. Now, there are some default physical materials, but for this class, we are now, for 2021, they changed it. 3D Studio Max changed their default renderer to Arnold. And essentially what that means is that in order for the renderer, and I know Arnold is a strange name, but that's what it's called, and it's not even an acronym, it's just what he called it, the creator. In order for Arnold to work properly, the renderer, you're going to want to use Arnold materials. And so where it says physical material, you want to click on that, and you want to go down to Arnold. We're going to work with Arnold, not General. General, close that up. Arnold, if it's closed, you can expand it. And you want to click on Surface, and you want Standard Surface. Okay, so materials, Arnold, surface, standard surface. Okay, and so it has now created a standard surface that works with Arnold. This is now an Arnold material to work with Arnold renderer, and we're going to use Arnold lights. Arnold was initially created for the film industry, and it was adopted by 3D Studio Max in about, I think, version 2018, maybe 17. And I think it was 18. And in the beginning, it was, oh God, it was a nightmare because, you know, whenever anything's new, it's in that beta mode, it's still being tested out. And so there was a lot of things that didn't work. Well, it's gotten a lot better. And so we're going to work with Arnold, and it's amazing. Now that I know it, you know, it was a learning curve for me, but now that I know it, absolutely love it. And so I'm excited for you all to get to work with it from the start. Because the defaults in 3D Studio Max used to be okay. They were okay. But Arnold is amazing. Okay? So once you have your standard surface created here, you're going to need to apply it to your object. So I'm going to select my little caterpillar, and I'm going to assign material to selection. It's the third button from the left. You can also drag and drop it. I don't like to do that because if I drag and drop it on something else, I could mess up what I'm working on. I like to make sure I've selected my object, selected my material, and then assign material to selection. Now, because this is white, he turned white. But we're going to change these parameters. And there's a lot in here, and it's really complicated. But once you start working with it, you'll get more comfortable with it. So we're going to go through these. I'm just going to walk you through these, okay? So the first thing I want to do is show you base. So base color. Okay, so base color, I'm going to tell you that it starts off at the 0.8 is the amount. The highest you can go is 1, which is 100%, and the lowest you can go is 0, which means it's off, 0%. So 0 to 1 for almost all of the settings in Arnold is how this works. Some of them don't work that way, some of them are multipliers. But in this case, 0 is off, and 100 is 100%, and any number in between is a percent, and it starts off at 80%. And I'm not quite sure why they selected 80%, but if you want it to be 100%, you're going to have to change that from 0.8 to 1. The color is white, so if I change the color, you see how it's changing my color here? And, you know, I could sit here and play around with this for hours, but I won't. So now it's changed that. Now, there we go. And it takes it a minute, and now you can see that it has changed over here. Roughness has to do with, I'll show you. You see how it's shiny and smooth? And by changing the roughness, my highlights got smaller. So it doesn't mean that it added roughness in terms of texture. It just means that it smoothed out, or rather it hardened. This is soft, and this is hard in terms of the highlights, how the highlights work. Now, you can also add a map. See these little boxes? It says pick a map or drop a map. You can click on one of those boxes, come all the way down to bitmap, and select a bitmap to apply to your material. And now my caterpillar is an adorable Art Nouveau pattern. And there's a lot more here to work with. We're not going to work with that right now. It's more advanced. We'll get there, but not right now. Now, I want to go back up to the parent, so I'm going to pull this down and go back to the default. And you can see that even though this is green, my map is now overriding the material, and my caterpillar has a pattern to him. Pretty cool. And that's just the base. Caustics has to do with glass. We're going to leave that off. And the direct in diffuse direct, that is on or off. And let me turn it off. Whoops. It doesn't make much of a difference because we don't have any lights. So once you get lights in there, what that will do is also, it's sort of like a diffuser, and it affects the light that is bounced off of objects that hit. It's kind of like if you're in a room and you're in a dark room and light is coming in through the window and it hits an object, and then it bounces around the room and you can see the side of the object that's not being hit by the light. That's because the light's bouncing around the room, and that's the diffuse light. Okay, so that's just the base color, and just based on that, we now have, I think I set that back, so yeah. And now my little caterpillar has a very interesting pattern on him. Okay, we're going to stop here and I'll continue in the next video.